Welcome back to the Football Forecast. We have a bit of a strange game to look forward to. Not many people backed Netherlands to get to this point. Nobody backed USA to get to this point. But they're both here. They're both lock horns against each other. And Louis van Gaal's army, in his own words, are actually doing all right. You knew that reference. You got the reference. Louis van Gaal's army.
I wanted you to do it in that voice. I was waiting for it.
Oh, man. I didn't want to disrespect the GOAT. What have you made of Netherlands so far?
They've trudged along. Their group was fairly favourable. Got quite lucky in the first game against Senegal. And I don't know, this is very... When I watch the Dutch and you see the orange shirts and you watch the major tournament, you want to see total football. You want to see flair. And when you see any team set up with three at the back, inherently it's just a little bit negative. But Van Gaal and MacDevitt are doing what they need to do to get through this competition. Similar to other teams like Portugal, they're a good tournament team and they've got a favourable draw in the last 16 against USA. So you can never write off the Dutch, but I just don't like what I'm seeing from them in terms of going forward. There's an over-reliance on moments from players as opposed to actually playing football the way that we expect Dutch people to play football. And against Qatar, despite the fact that 1-2-0 was the final group game, they didn't impress me. They didn't excite me. I expect them to beat USA in the next round, but I don't see them getting that far in this competition.
Yeah, they've not been the sort of free-flowing total football side that you'd normally expect from a Netherlands team, but to only concede one goal in the group stage I think is good. And with the defensive capabilities they've got, Virgil van Dijk in a Netherlands shirt he's their guy. He's solid, and he's still one of the best defenders in the world. He's 31 years of age, and he feels a lot of responsibility when he puts on the shirt. So I think the defensive capabilities that we've seen from them, and in the run-up, they don't concede much, and in knockout football, that is so important because it is just hinging on those tiny moments. I think a lot of the other teams who are in contention, the big footballing countries, they've shown more defensive frailty than we've seen from the Netherlands. They might not have been tested to the same level yet, but when they have been tested, they've shut everything out, and that counts for a lot.
I think also on the point of Virgil van Dijk, further up the pitch, Frankie de Jong currently averaging 3.7 tackles per 90, which is insane. I think that little area that they sort of like play with is where they can dominate games in that central area because they've got a good base. My worry is Daley Blind, that left wing back, with Aki in behind him. More often than not, especially in the Ecuador game, Ecuador targeted them wide areas because you have Denzel Dumfries who pushes right the way on. He's essentially like your right-sided midfielder. You've got Daley Blind who tucks across and becomes your left back. Then you're up against a quick right winger and there's space on this side. And I think that game, it was actually a Senegal game. De Ligt was getting dragged out wide, so they brought in Jurien Timber. I think they're still trying to figure things out defensively. They have to fix that left side because I think if you're USA, you're going, I might even be tempted to play Pulisic off the right side, and I'm going, go and get at Daley Blind because that will cause them problems. USA, on the other hand, played very well throughout I think they've had this real steady growth in the group where you're going, they don't actually rely on anyone. They play high-octane football, they put pressure on, they make it difficult for their oppositions, and now they take on a Netherlands side who are almost like, we don't really want the ball either, and we kind of just want to play. It's going to be like a very bad NBA match when neither side can actually get to the hoop.
Yeah, I completely agree. The problem USA are going to have in that match is that Netherlands' strength come from the defence, and on paper for their first game, if you look at De Ligt, you look at Van Dijk, and you look at Nathan Ake, that's a very, very strong back three.
Solid, yeah.
Obviously, we've seen Jurien Timber come in because De Ligt looked at sea against Senegal. But that's very solid, and I think USA's problem is they lack that cutting edge. I don't see how they're going to score many goals against that Dutch defence. And you rightly mentioned Frankie de Jong. He's been the metronome in midfield, just pulling the strings. He's probably the only Dutch player that's playing like a Dutch player. He actually looks like he wants to play football. He's got things ticking. Obviously, we're going to come on to talk about their superstar who's scoring them all their goals. But Frankie de Jong is very, very important to making this Dutch team tick. And I think that if they're going to go far in this competition, he's going to be one of the players of the tournament.
I think if you've got a good spine, you've got something to build on, and I think that's what the Netherlands have got. They've got that spine. De Jong has been good. Virgil van Dijk has been good. And obviously they've got a superstar up front who's banging them in, who we're going to get onto. So I think if you've got a spine, I think you're okay. And just a quick one on the USA. Their identity has just become, we're a good team. We know they're not trying to be anything that they're not. They work hard. They seem to get on well, and they seem to be a proper team who are enjoying the journey, but also know that they've got good players, and that they're a nation that in future tournaments I think could start to challenge in maybe not later stages, but definitely get through to knockouts regularly and be in the mix for a team that people need to plan for, which hasn't always been the case. But they're not trying to be anything they're not. They work hard, no superstars. Let's try and win a game of football.
Well, the one superstar they do have, Christian Pulisic.
You're giving him a superstar title?
Well, mate,
for USA.
Yeah. You can see that he loves it. It kills me, this World Cup, seeing Kai Havertz, Christian Pulisic, Hakim Ziyech performing for their national team, but not performing for Chelsea. That's a completely different conversation. But like you say, they know what they are and they know what they're good at. And I think it's their fitness and their ability to get in and around teams and make them feel uncomfortable. That's what they did to England. They made England feel uncomfortable. And despite the fact that England probably dominated possession in that game, it wasn't a comfortable game for England. So for USA, they're going to probably have to get off the mark very, very quickly against the Dutch, because I think when Netherlands settle into their rhythm, it's going to be difficult for USA to get hold of the ball.
It probably will mirror the Ecuador game, where Ecuador were throwing everything at Netherlands, but then they were relying on Enner Valencia, who I know is everyone's tournament goat. I don't even know how that ever happened. At what point did we all start becoming Enner Valencia fans? Whereas for Netherlands on the other end, they've got Cody Gakpo, who has been in incredible form, was linked to Manchester United. We will talk about where he may end up. But in terms of this guy, this tournament, we speak about moments in big tournament situations. We spoke about Marcus Rashford in another video. We talk about Mbappe endlessly. This guy has given Netherlands everything they need going forward. When Memphis Depay's been injured, he's turned up with a header from what should have never have been a goal. The goal he scored in his last game, where he sort of flashes it across the keeper. He's not even a centre forward. He's actually a winger. I do worry that at some point those moments will run out. But up until this point, this kid looks the real deal.
Right, you've got to ride the wave while it's hot, right? No, he's obviously he's in a really good bit of form, and he's taking his chances. 3 goals from 4 shots, clinical. It's as good as it gets, really. So I think he's their guy, and they're going to be dependent on him as they go through the tournament if they get through this next game. But he's an exciting player. When he has got the ball at his feet, he's tricky, he's direct. He's someone who I think the Netherlands can be excited about.
Definitely, and he's given me 2014 James Rodriguez vibes. Like, going to turn up at a tournament, get that big money move, and hopefully his career goes a little bit better than James did in the later stages of it. But he's, like you mentioned, he scored so many different types of goals. It's a header, it's a left foot banger, it's a right foot across the keeper. He just brings so much. And if you look at club level, and it's always difficult to judge the Dutch league because you get such varied results when players move to other teams. He's scored so many goals and created so many goals as well in terms of assists, that he's a player the team should be looking at. He's at the perfect age. He's got that physicality as well. You'd love to see him in the Premier League. When you see a 6'2" winger, it's kind of jarring to the eye, but he just has that little bit of magic. And again, I talked about Frankie de Jong being pivotal to the Netherlands' hopes. This guy is the man who's going to score their goals going forward, especially because of the fitness of Memphis Depay. So wrap him up on cotton wool, because he's going to be the man to lead to glory if you do get to glory for the Netherlands. And
it's not a surprise that he's scoring goals. At club level, I think he's 1 in 3. 1 goal in 3 games as predominantly a wide player. That's good numbers and that's good stats. So the fact he has taken on the responsibility of being the Dutch main guy, props to him, because he's not playing in those areas for his club, and to do it to the level he is, he deserves a lot of credit.
I think there's an element there of I want to move, because there was a chance he could have moved in the summer. Manchester United, Leeds, Southampton, various European giants as well, including Bayern Munich and Real Madrid. We're in this point now where I think he's already got himself in the shop window, because people are going to go, he scored 3 goals in a tournament, which is brilliant, especially for a side that don't score that many goals. Whether they go to the final or whether they go out now, you go, Cody Gakpo probably gets a move somewhere. Where do we think that move is?
It's tough.
It's really tricky. He's obviously Man United, we've seen he's widely linked with there. I think he'd be a good fit for Man United as they kind of transition and they bring in the people that they want to bring in. But if he continues in this tournament, I don't think Man United now are as attractive as some of the other clubs in Europe, the big clubs in Europe. And I think if he can score a few more goals, he could be suddenly... I'm not dissing Manchester United anyway. No one come for me. I nearly said he could. I nearly said he could be looking at a move to a big club. I'm not saying that, but you could be looking at sort of a Bayern Munich or a Real Madrid if he can score a few more goals.
I don't know why, but when I envisaged him playing, I see him in the black and white stripes of Newcastle, and that's just what
great move.
I think it'd be a great move for him, a great move for Newcastle in terms of what they're trying to build and where they're at this moment. And I just think he'd fit Eddie Howe's system. Eddie Howe will get a lot out of him, and I can just see it working. I can see him forming quite a good partnership with Isak as well. We don't know about the future of St Maximin. He suffered with injuries this season, so there's a vacancy in the spot on the left side of the wing for Newcastle. And I can see Gakpo being a good fit in Tyneside.
It's a really good shout. This is a young player who wants to play football, and I think the project of Newcastle, don't know how much he knows about Eddie Howe, but I'm sure after a few conversations he'd realise that Eddie Howe's a proper football man and a really intelligent manager. And I think if you had the option to go and play for a Newcastle team who's a really exciting project, or maybe not be guaranteed a start and having to compete for your spot, I think Newcastle, where he'd probably be one of the main men very quickly, could be a really good shout.
Give me a number here. How much do you think Cody Gakpo's worth?
70, 60.
I think if Newcastle are shopping, they're putting about another 30 mil on there. I think he'd go for like 90.
When did it become a thing that just
I know
100 mil is like
is normal?
is normal?
Price.
That's a light price. Now
Yeah.
I think you've got to remember the difference in the league he's playing in now to the Premier League. No disrespect to that league, but it's a big step up, and a lot of players have been successful there, come over, and it not quite worked out. So I think he's having a great tournament. He's proven it at club level. I think a move now to go and establish yourself in the Premier League, that 60, 70 mil is a fair and good fee.
I'm just looking at the excitement that builds when a player performs at World Cup, and then I look at the fee of a player that came from that league in Anthony and how much he went to Manchester United for. I think you can have another 20, 30 mil on that for Gakpo, and it pushes it towards that 100 mil mark. I'm not saying he's worth it. I'm not saying that he's not worth it. I just think that that's probably around the price you're going to pay for somebody who's performing like this on the world stage.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.